Come on. There we go. Maybe. There we go. And then we go over here. Okay. All right. I think that's everything. It's clicking. There's more clicking, and there we go. How you doing? Good morning, unless it's like evening or afternoon. Trying to get all my stuff all set up here. Good morning from Northwest. Okay. Good morning from Markham. Good thing this is on this week, as there is a convention for me next weekend. Well, there's a convention for me next weekend as well. So that was part of why I was like, because this is the schedule this week, and then 2 weeks from now, I have to, excuse me. Excuse me. But yeah, I've been in the same schedule for a good long time, because obviously not traveling anywhere because of, everything. And so my first convention back to actually doing anything happened to be during, every other Sunday schedule. And that was Gen Con back, I don't know, 3 weeks ago? A month ago? However long it was ago? About a month ago. So, because I looked forward into the future to see what my schedule looked like for a while, I looked at next week. So next week I'm going to be in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin at Dragonfall, which is a convention that's mainly for charity. It's a smaller convention, 300 to 400 people, which is still, good size, but it's not, Gen Con or Adepticon or whatever. And it is mostly about miniatures, which is great. And then after that, I'm going to Holy Havoc, which is a small tournament. That's in November. And then there's that. And then, let's see, when am I going to... So then, yeah, I'm also going to Las Vegas Open, and if I get back on schedule, then Las Vegas Open in 2022 will also not, it'll be in between weeks of the Every Other Sunday show. So I was like, the next 3 things I'm doing are outside of the regular, so that makes sense. Anyway, I hope that some of that at least made a tiny bit of sense. Hello from Southern Germany. How you doing? Hello from sunny France. It's sunny here, but it's been chilly all weekend. It's what time? It's temperature right now? Something like 50. Nope, 46 degrees Fahrenheit. So, good morning from Derry, Northern Ireland. Hello. Hello from Brunswick. 55 today, which makes my Wisconsin heart smile, especially since I can't go to GameholeCon. Yeah, GameholeCon is next weekend as well, and that's a bigger convention. That is a tabletop gaming convention, not just miniatures, but RPGs, board games, the whole shebang. And that's, on a normal year, like 2019, which was the last normal year, I think there was 6,000 people there. Unfortunately, it happens to be the same weekend as Dragonfall. And so I was going to try to go to both and then decided not to. Hello from Verona, Italy. I'm painting my very first orc. Wish me luck. Well, good luck, Stephen. I wish you luck on your orc. Let's see here. Chronomancer much? I mean, I am chronomancing a little bit, I guess. Sure. Morning from Baldwin, Wisconsin. How you doing? South Ontario, Central Illinois, Mid-Michigan, Italy, Des Moines. VJ Morph, how you doing? Hope you and Moderator Matt have fun at Dragonfall. I do as well. Moderator Matt kind of runs all the charity stuff at Dragonfall. He's on the board and he handles all the charities. So he talks to lots of companies out there and gets them involved and gets them to send him stuff. And then there's like an auction kind of a thing or a raffle or some. Well, I think there's maybe a little bit of both, but it's mostly a raffle where you basically buy raffle tickets and you say, I want to put all my raffle tickets on this Pokemon, or I don't know, whatever. I don't know if they actually have Pokemons there. Greetings from Finland. I'd love to go to a convention or tournament or something. Yeah. Good morning, Uncle Adam. Thanks for the inspiration. I'm back into the hobby after 30 years. Currently assembling my Death Corps of Krieg from the Octarius box. Nice. They're a fun... they're a decent... I haven't built the orcs yet, but the Deathcore Crew, they were a decent build. They're not too bad. Good morning from Geneva, New York. Checking in from Managua. Hello from Texas. To my favorite faux uncle. I appreciate that. Cheers from the Mitten. Hello from the Isle of Man. Bonjour de Montreal. Not particularly great at French. Took it in high school, but it doesn't mean I'm good at it. Morning from Milwaukee. How you doing? Are they having a painting competition at Dragonfall this year? I believe so, yes. I think, potentially, friend of the show, Eni Minis, I believe she's got some stuff that she's going to enter. She won some stuff in 2019, the last time that they had the show. Ouch. So, yeah, I think she's entering some stuff. Been watching your YouTube channel for a million years. First time watching Sunday show from Denmark. Well, we're glad to have you, absolutely. Greetings from Jacksonville. We're painting OPR Duchies of Vinci today before I start running my D&D game. I've seen those models from One Page Rules, and they're very cool, but I can't think of a great use for them that I have in a game, so there's that. But they're very cool. I've got a Ghost Ark half assembled. It originally had 47 sub-assemblies. What a monster. I'm currently planning on how to paint the stern. I like the use of the word stern. Good work. Secondly, I think when you have that many sub-assemblies, then you just haven't put it together yet. It seems like it. I mean, I don't know. It's a big vehicle, so I suppose that's probably not true. But that is a lot of sub-assemblies. Goodness. I would have probably just sprayed it all black and hoped for the best, but, you know, I'm kind of lazy on that stuff. Have you tried Army Painter's contrast colors? What are your thoughts? I got 3 bottles. I got like a dark brown, a dark blue, and like a gray. I have not had a chance to use them yet. I need to find... Really what I need to find is I need to find like 3 somethings that I can like prime all the same color so that I can kind of compare them or something. Or maybe more than 3 somethings. What I should try to do, honestly, is try to find contrast colors that are as close as possible to the colors from the speed paints, and then compare and contrast. Huh? You see how I did that? And then see how it goes from there. We'll see that. Wrapping up my Octarius Orcs today. Next up is Middle-earth Strategy Battle Game from 2001. Wow. Good afternoon from Germany. How you doing? Well, from Northern Italy, I'm probably going to continue 6mm modular road system. Nice. Finally caved and bought Aeronautica Planicus, trying to decide how to paint the Tau flyers. Yeah, you know, I've thought a little about that game again recently. I don't know. I don't know if I should go look in the box at the very least again. I have a suspicion that those models are going to be like 17 parts each, even though they're like little airplanes that big. And I'm like, do we even need that? I don't think so. But I've also been painting Car Wars, which is basically no building at all. They've already kind of pre-built them, but they're also kind of models. They're okay. The sculpts are fine. It's the actual production that's like, there's big mold lines and just other issues and gaps and stuff. And I just, you know, I would go and try to fix all that, but I'm kind of like, you know, I mean, they're Matchbox cars basically, except not. But they're roughly the same size. So, I don't know. I've got 3 of them fully painted, and I like them a lot. I've got 3 other ones that I painted that I don't like as much, and I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to strip them or not. Last night I did add some black wash to them, just like, well, what if I just try to grunge everything up even more? Will that help? Maybe partying will help. And but yeah, so we'll see how it goes. I don't know. But partially, I don't know, that plus also watching Penny Arcade on their Twitch channel. They were recently playing the Adeptus Flyeronicus game, and so it's vaguely interesting. I don't know. Almost finished cleaning my late father's workshop, so much grime, and converting it into a painting and wargaming hangout. Nice. When we bought the house, my wife's grandmother, at some point, the dryer had been in the basement, washer and dryer, kind of, you know, clothes washer, and the dryer had been in the basement and had not been properly vented to outside, so one wall of the basement was mostly covered in dryer lint, which took a while to get rid of. Easier than grime, certainly, but still. The Spiky Bits review of the speed paint seems really good. Not that I tend to be a huge fan of some of the Spiky Bits hot takes. I saw, I think, a thumbnail for it, but I haven't watched it. And I know Goobertown posted something, at least on Instagram. I don't know if he posted a video about it, but my daughter just subscribed to her first hobby YouTuber, Dana Howell. Nice. Dana does good work. Played my first game of Kill Team yesterday. It was fun, but wish the setup pregame was streamlined a bit. Yeah, it's... I feel like the game is... Even though they've changed things a good deal, I still feel like it's a good deal chunkier than it needs to be. You know what I mean? I don't know. I like the fact that... Like, it's important to us, Vince and I, that Reign in Hell was quick. And, you know, I mean, that's still fun, but quick. We don't need 28 different special rules for everything. You know what I mean? Like, you have special rules, like this unit, this armored demon has like one special rule, and that's what you got to remember, you know. And then, you know, maybe you'll add a relic, maybe you'll add an essence, maybe you even get a title eventually, but still, I don't know. Good afternoon from Colchester. I think I might have mispronounced that. Painting my last Blood Bowl humans for the team. First time catching live show while being able to do hobby. First world dad problems, indeed. I would like to gift myself a new Aeronautica Imperialis box for Christmas. I think part of it, too, me thinking about it again, is I was at the game shop yesterday talking to my friend who owns it, and he had the new box there. And he was kind of looking at it and asking me questions about it, because he doesn't know a ton about it, and I don't know a ton about it, but I think I know a little bit more than he does, maybe. So that's cool. But it's the one that's got Eldar versus basically Space Marines, and I don't want the Eldar. The other box, like the original box, was Orcs versus, I think, Imperial Guard, and airplanes. Yeah, I don't know. Morning from Salt Lake City. This morning I'm painting a Mumak from Middle Earth strategy game. It's going to be a Christmas present for my dad. Is that the big elephant guy? I don't remember that though, but that's cool. It's very nice. Have you played any Warcry recently? Unfortunately, no. Sam and our schedules have not tied up particularly well. That being said, I think I have my friend who's the shop owner on board, because we were, again, talking yesterday, and I was like, because Sam is moving to the town that I live in November. So we'll be able to hang out more. It'll be easier to do that. We'll be able to play more. That'll be easier as well. And so my friend, the shop owner, who's also Sam's friend, we're going to try to get Sam and I are going to try to get him into Warcry. So he's been playing mainly Age of Sigmar lately, but so there, yeah. Going from Toledo, Ohio. How you doing? I'm definitely interested in the Army Painter Air and Speed series. Yeah, I've got the Air paints, and I've messed with a couple so far, and I like them. And I think that going forward, I'm going to start using more of them on my Car Wars cars, because the thing that's interesting about like the big pack of Air paints, if you buy the big pack, is it's got triads of colors. So you'll have like skeleton bone, and there'll be the main skeleton bone color, and there'll be a darker color and a lighter color. I forget exactly what they call it. It's like highlight and shade. I don't know. But the thing that's nice about that then is that if you want to, you can kind of, like if you're not trying to go for an actual zenithal and you're going to cover it with contrast, you're actually just trying to color the actual whatever it is, maybe it's a vehicle, you can prime it and then spray it over with the dark version of whatever color you want, then spray it with the light color from kind of above, and then just hit in certain spots with the highlight color, and it will look, again, like you know more than you do, which is important in painting. So having those triads, and triads are nothing new. Reaper's been producing paints in triads for years, but this is airbrush colors all in triads. I think it'd be super cool if going forward in the regular Army Painter line, they started doing more triads. That'd be very cool. But here in airbrush terms, it makes a lot more sense, I think, to do the triad things. Picked up rules for Planet 28 along with their solo rules. Looking forward to trying them out. Yeah, and it's... What was I reading last night? I was reading... I finally got a printed copy, a hardcover of Forbidden Psalm. I bought the PDF, I don't know, beginning of the year or early parts, maybe spring. But I kind of, even though I'm usually not that into paper and stuff like that, for some reason for that book, I'm like, I kind of want the print version. So I did finally track it down, and I bought the print version. And so I was reading that a little bit last night. And I sort of want to do a battle report series for that. because it's really kind of interesting. So your warband is always 5 models, and you're not really worried. You don't have classes and like, oh, well, this guy's a such and such. Like, you can have like one caster, like spellcaster, but otherwise it's not like this guy's a paladin and this guy's a rogue or whatever. So I'm very interested in at least trying to come up with a night with a fun warband. Plus, in the kind of the spirit of the game, when you're building your warband, you're supposed to be building your flaws and your feats, and like all that stuff is supposed to be random. So I think that'd be very interesting too, to kind of see like the weird randomness that kind of creates your warband for you a little bit, and then just being like, well, this is the date that I brought, so I got to dance with it kind of situation. You know what I mean? So yeah. Continued from last post, the new kill team works for me because of my buffet approach to the last one. See, that's why I like skirmish games, is because of the buffet approach, where you can have a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this. But I've lately been scratching that with Warcry. So, I was reading the kill team rules yesterday. The charge rules seem strangely confusing. I'm guessing it's easier than it seems. Maybe not. I don't know. I got to be honest. In most situations, I find that once I struggle through the rules, like actually trying to play a game, like, even if it takes forever and you're like, or even if you're trying it by yourself, like if you decide I'll play both sides and I'll just do this. Once you kind of run through the cycle a couple of times, or even an entire game, then going back and reading the rules, all of a sudden it just becomes so much more crystal clear when you're just like trying to, at least if you're me, if you're trying to like picture the rules in your head and go, so I'm supposed to do this? And it just doesn't make sense. But when you actually run the cycle a couple of times, the game loop, the gameplay loop as it's known, then all of a sudden sitting down and reading the rules again, all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, okay, sure, I see what you're doing there. That just, it helps. So there's a lot of times when people tell me, I read the rules, but they were confusing and I couldn't figure it out. Give it a try, and then the rules will probably make more sense when you look at them. You go back and look at them again. I think I made a whole video about it actually years ago, but it's something I noticed a long time ago. I must be asleep still. You said air paints. I heard air pants. I was standing here thinking, what are air pants? Am I missing? Well, air pants are, I think just mesh pants, so the air can get through. I don't know. That's a good question, but no, air paints is the situation. Did you get sent any of Duncan's paints? Speaking of triads, I did not. No, and I didn't do the Kickstarter either. Like I said, I'm trying to stay away from Kickstarters for a while. So, yeah, I hadn't heard on anything about that. I mean, I heard that he was doing a paint line, obviously, but that's about it. Tuning in while building some winter German infantry for old action. Nice. I paint my Necrons in Zircon. I think I might have pronounced that maybe close to right. Zircon colors. And it turns out there's a way of doing that that's just washes. I'm not game enough or rich enough to experiment with that technique now. When I do my Necrons, I made a video about it back in mid-2020. So like summer of 2020, you go back and find quick and easy painting Necrons. Primed them black. Then I dry brushed silver onto them with a big fat makeup brush. Dry brush. And then I used a contrast color. I think it was actually Skeleton Horde, non-ironically enough. And but it might have been Agoras Dunes. Off the top of my head now, I forget what it's, but it's one of those colors, and you just basically put contrast over that silver to black fade now. And I don't know, I think it looked really good. And then use bright green for some of the accents and stuff, and I really had a good time checking it out. Turns out Monument have a reseller in Singapore. They recommend I order from there until they get Aussie distribution. Well, that's closer. I mean, at least, that's good. There you go. I need the Battletech game of armored combat, but then I wouldn't mind getting Aeronautica Imperialis. My main concern with Aeronautica is if it's a lot of bookkeeping. And I'm sure it's not nearly as much as, say, Battletech for sure. So I'm interested in trying that out. Maybe. We'll see. Again, I'm going to look at the sprues and go, if a plane this big has got like 8 pieces to it, I'll be like, is that necessary? The other thing, too, is if I paint them and all that kind of stuff, it kind of looks silly if you don't put decals on them a little bit, yet they look like a pain in the butt to put decals on. So that may also I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll find somebody who's really good at decals that I can commission to put the decals on them. I don't know. That's possible. Let's see here. Looking forward to see the speed paints. Yeah, I want to try them out and see what it's like. I mean, the one issue that I already have with them, and it's not a big deal, but it's a little bit of a big deal, is the fact that I like contrast paints because I like to dip into the pot. Same with my washes. One of the reasons I just don't seem to use other companies' washes too much, or inks, or any of that kind of stuff, is because they're in squirt bottles. Little squirt bottles, awesome for most paints, opaque paints, stuff like that. Things I want to put on the wet palette, I want to do it with a dropper bottle. Absolutely, all day. But for washes and contrasts and stuff like that, I want to just dip into the pot and put it directly onto the model and do this. This is me painting on the model. Yeah, that's kind of the problem. And I don't think I can get the bristles down inside the little hole on that thing. I don't think it's going to work. So it's one of those, I think I talked about this on Friday on Twitch, that basically it'd be funny for me to get some GW empty pots and then take the stuff out of the squirt bottles and then put it into the pots so I could get at it. And that would be weird because everybody does that the other way around. They take the pots and they put it into squirt bottles, that kind of thing, which is fine. And again, I totally get it for opaque paints. I want opaque paints in dropper bottles all the time. But for washes and contrast and stuff like that, I kind of want pots. So I don't know. I have little tiny plastic cups that you buy from Amazon. You get a bag of 1,000 of them. It's this huge like pillow of a bag, and it was like, I don't know, $14, and it's the little tiny cups that tattoo artists use to dip the needle of the tattoo gun. This is not a tattoo gun. They don't do that, but you dip it in there and then you poke into the person and such. And so I bought those, but I don't know. Sometimes I have a tendency to like use them until I don't have any more, and then I'm like, they're in a bag in a drawer, and then I'm on the stream, and I'm like, oh, crap. And so, I don't know. I got to get better about my supplies, I suppose. But, yeah, I don't know. It's a thing. Not a big thing, but it's a thing. Tony says, I picked up a starter box of House Hadros this week. I've been researching water-based techniques on YouTube, seen so many great ideas. That's pretty cool. I liked House Hadros. That was my favorite house for A Wrath of Kings. What are your thoughts on the Silver Bayonet? I haven't seen it yet. Sounds interesting. I mean, like Skirmish, Napoleonic, like vampires, I'm kind of on board. Yeah, if I'm hoping they send me a copy so I can check it out. Like they sent me, Stargrave, and they sent me stuff like that. But I'm hoping to see. I should probably reach out just to see. But yeah, that's it's supposed to be coming out, I think, in November. I think. So yeah. Let's see here. Duncan's paints named light skin tones as elf and dwarf, and dark skin tones as boarhide, human for white, wild animal for people of color. Yeah, no, I'd heard a little bit about that. Yeah, it's maybe not necessarily the best naming convention, I'll give you that, for sure. Does anyone have a good brass that they like? Brass usually has a little green hue, otherwise it doesn't look right. That's true. You're not wrong. I don't know if I've ever used Monument's brass. Monument's bronze I like. I like Monument bronze. I like Monument's rich gold. It's my favorite gold. But I don't know that I've tried their brass, if they have one. Speed paints are just another way of painting rather than a replacement for contrasts or acrylics. Speed paints are just another way of painting. I mean, I think the speed paint stuff from Army Painter, they're kind of going right up against contrast. I don't think that I don't know that it's a new thing. I think that they're basically trying to do the same thing that contrast is doing. Contrast paints, you use one coat and you kind of slop it on there. It collects in the dark areas, it stains the middle areas, and it tries to pull away from the raised areas. And I'm pretty sure that's what the speed paints from Army Painter are supposed to be doing as well. So I think that is what they're actually trying to do there. Max Fitzgerald. Hey, Max, how you doing? What's your Twitch? It is right here. It is twitch.tv/tabletopminions, strangely enough. And I stream on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central and on Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Central. I usually go for about 3 hours per slot. And right now I am working on actually another Warcry warband. I'm working on Slaves to Darkness, Chaos guys. I've finished 5 regular warriors. They're done. They could use some matte varnish, but other than that, they're basically done. And then I am currently working on a Chaos Lord, who is kind of the older, like 2002, 2003 Chaos Lord. He's got that big sort of, it's maybe a spear, but it might also be a sword. We've been calling it a spord. And then he's... and then there's another guy who's another Chaos Lord who's on a big, dumb lizard dog thing, which was really, really hard to build. And I didn't build it properly. I failed. And so I went onto eBay and bought somebody else's who had built it and never painted it, which, as I keep saying, that's a lot of eBay right now, right there. So if you ever find a model that you're either not interested in building because it looks hard and you just don't have the time, go on eBay. You'll find somebody who built it and then never painted it. And then you can buy theirs. So anyway... yes, I like the Dr. Tabletop drop tops. That's a lot of OP. Tabletop drop tops. That's a lot of OPs next to each other. Anyway, on contrast paint, so I can get my mixes right on my plastic dry palette. I never seem to mix. I should probably maybe mix contrast, but I almost never do. But those drop tops are kind of cool. I bought some of them from my local store. I did not get them from the Kickstarter. I missed that Kickstarter, but I did find some at a local store. Let's see here. Girl Painting had a video of her transferring her Vallejo into the old Citadel P3 style pots. Huh, that's kind of cool. I never used the Army Painter washes until this week, thanks to Sam Lens. I love them. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty good. Like the cloaks on all of my, these Chaos guys, these Slaves to Darkness that I just got done, they're all done... it's a black and white zenithal with the airbrush, and then I just slopped their green tone on there because it matched. These guys are designed to kind of match a bunch of Chaos warriors that I painted mid-2010s. And so, but they're the old Chaos warriors where they were designed to go on the little square bases because they were for Warhammer Fantasy. So they're like this, They got a shield, they're holding it very close to themselves, and they have their sword, and because they got to go in tight ranks. Well, these new sculpts in the Start Collecting box for Slaves to Darkness, they can kind of spread out a little bit. So they got their sword out here, and their the shields out here, and they're like wiggling around, and that's kind of nice. It's a nice, more dynamic kind of thing overall. So I like the look of them. And the cloaks, so I wanted them to kind of match, so I tried to figure out exactly which green tone I used 7 years ago or whatever, and it turns out it looks like it was Army Painter green tone, or if not, it was close enough, so that's what I did. Let me see here. I just cut the rubber hinge for the lids off the GW paint bottles so that you can clean around the part that's hard to get at, and then the paint doesn't crust up or anything. Yeah, that does seem to be a thing, doesn't it? Where it collects in the back part, like my Black Templar my Black Templar contrast paint, maybe a Chaos paint, I don't know, but it's contrast paint, doesn't close properly. When you put it down like this, it's always like this, and the back part's full of grunge, and so I need to get in there and try to clean that out, I guess. Miniatures Market Rest in Peace sale is pretty great. I grabbed a few more Wrath of Kings boxes. Their shipping rate to Canada is reasonable. Well, that's good. I always transfer a bit of paint to which I add water. I often get the same effect contrast paints get. The one thing I find with contrast paints is that if you use them right on the right type of model, you will definitely get that kind of trick that they want, where the crevices collect more pigment and get darker, and if there's sharp pointy parts kind of in detail, let's say there's a fur cloak or whatever, where the sharp points come together, the stuff pulls away from it and you do get a lighter color. Contrast is not great for everything. There's a lot of smooth things out there. Space Marines suck with contrast. They just don't, unless they're covered in all kinds of stuff or whatever, but a normal, plain old, regular kind of smoothish Space Marine, the contrast is no good, in my opinion. It's great on the gun. If you want to use Black Templar on the gun, that's a really good color to use that, and then do some dry brushing or whatever if you want to go down that road. Depends on how you want to paint them. But yeah, generally I don't like to use contrast on things that are real smooth because it's not that great. But things that have fur, scales, just lots and lots of detail of other kinds, it works, I find, pretty well. Haven't read Rain in Hell yet, but is it possible to use angel models? Those suckers are much more terrifying and abstract than just monster with horns. You can use whatever kind of models you want. That's the whole trick. The concept of demons here, in Rain in Hell, it's not the Judeo-Christian, God and Lucifer and this and that and the 9 layers or any of that kind of stuff. Like, hell in the Rain in Hell is just this kind of other dimension kind of place, and these creatures in there are the creatures that inhabit that place. As they've come to Earth to come and get our tasty, tasty souls, we have started to go, these are demons and they're from hell. But that's us saying that. That's not what they don't even really have a name for where they come from. You know what I mean? And they don't really have a name for themselves because they're not really into, naming stuff too much. That's not their jam. They don't have any universities there. They're not sitting down and going, but what is it to be a demon? Like, they don't even, that's the thing. So, that's us putting stuff onto them. So demons can look like pretty much anything. I've seen plenty of people on the Facebook group or the Facebook groups. There's 2 groups, actually, that have been posted out there for Facebook group. There's a subreddit for Rain in Hell that someone put up also. These are all very cool things to check out. But I've seen people post... There's somebody working on a cabal of demons that are all in suits, they're just like, they look like just dudes in suits, kind of. There's all kinds of things you can do. So, it's really interesting. Hey, 12 Neef, how you doing? Let's see, where am I at? Thank you for the recommendation of LA's Totally Awesome, using it to prepare a War Machine model for a Turn Up 28 project. Nice. Yeah, that stuff is... LA's Totally Awesome is what it says in the tin, totally awesome. If I end up stripping those Car Wars models, I'm going to be dumping it in there. So we'll see how that goes. Let me see. According to Vince Venturella, Technomancer and T1000 the Miniature Hobby, I don't think he ever sleeps, it's true. He recommends Vallejo Metal Color Silver mixed with Fire Slayer Flesh contrast. I can vouch it looks great. That's kind of cool. For the speed paint, you need a dry palette with little recesses where you can pour a little bit of the paint. Yeah, that would work too. Or you could put it, like I said, in those little plastic cups like used for tattoos and stuff. Or I know, like Kenny Boucher from Next Level Painting, I guess he and his wife drink a lot of bottled water. And so you have those little plastic, the cup, or the cap that comes off the top of the bottled water. They just save those, and then he recycles those as little tiny, kind of like wash and mixing dishes or whatever. That works out well. I recently, everything scrolled. Let's see here. I realized I have exactly 3 metallic paints, but since I'm painting Necrons, they make up the majority of my scheme. Yeah, that'll happen with them. Yeah, for sure. Have you ever tried out AK Interactive True Metal or Extreme Metal paints? Are they any good? I haven't tried them, no. Daily Contact lens cups are perfect for contrast metallics and store perfectly in wet palette for extended sessions. Well, there you go. There you go. I never hear anyone talk about Reaper paints. Are they just that bad that no one uses? I don't think so. I own some, not too many. I think part of it is that there's nobody around me that sells Reaper. So, there's nobody around me that sells Reaper. It's generally Citadel, Army Painter, Turbo Dork. I know I can get that locally. P3 I can even get locally. I can't get... what's his name there? I can't get Monument locally yet, but I'm trying to get a store locally to handle it. But I've just been buying direct, and that the reason I bought that stuff was because I did actually get it. I bought a bottle of Monument's bright titanium white, or bold titanium white. I picked up a bottle of white at Las Vegas Open 2019 because I find that if I like your white paint, I will probably like the majority of the paint in your line. White is a very difficult color to make good as a paint manufacturer. So I bought a bottle of their white paint in 2019, came home, used it, went, huh. And then when I went back in 2020 and they had a booth again at the Las Vegas Open, because they're based out of Arizona, which is near enough Vegas, much nearer than it is to come here, Then I bought the rest of their entire line. So yeah, that was kind of an investment that I wanted to make because I was like, I'm really impressed with these paints, and I've been a big fan of their stuff, and I've got an affiliate link, and I work with them on stuff, and we've got some projects coming soon, which I'm really looking forward to. Me and Jason from Monument Hobbies. So I'm a big fan of Monument stuff as well. Reaper, though, where have I seen it actually to be? I think I've seen it at Adepticon to buy, but that's about it. The main Reaper paint that I use, I've got a couple of washes of theirs that I like. They have one color called Pure White, Pure Gray, Light Gray, Pale Gray, Pale Gray. I think it's Pale Gray. I use that sometimes on stuff, and that's very cool. I like that. Yeah, Pale Gray is a good wash from, at least I'm pretty sure it's from Reaper. It might be from Vallejo. I don't know. I know that the black brush-on primer that I put around the rims on all my models, that's definitely Reaper, and I bought a whole bunch of it at once, like 10 bottles of it at once, so I wouldn't run out, and I haven't run out. But, yeah, I don't know. I got to say, I don't know why. I think it's just, again, it's location. That's the situation there, so. What's your STD? Slaves to Darkness, by the way. Thank you very much. Warband composition. So I have 5 regular Chaos Warriors. One of them could be used as a aspiring champion, or you could say no, he's just another dude. But he also could be aspiring champion. I have the Chaos Warrior, and I have the Chaos Warrior on Krakalakadak, whatever his name is. And then that's about it. Now I can't use all those guys into one warband, so I kind of built several different kind of groups, and then I need to, because I also have 3 Varangard that I've already painted that these guys are going to match, at least mostly. And I can't use really 3 Varangard in a single Warcry, but I could use one. So I've got maybe 3 different lists, and between a Varangard and the stuff that I'm painted now and maybe a couple other pieces of Chaos, I've got a lot of different options, but I don't have the list off the top of my head. But yeah, so it was basically more about getting options together. I cleaned the gunk out of my Black Templar the other pot day, so satisfying. Yeah, I got to try that. I got to get a screwdriver in there or something to get that stuff out. Anyone know of a contrast color that is a purple-brown? No. There's real dark purple. One of the contrast colors is called Shyish. I think it's called Shyish purple, and that's really dark, almost black, but it's technically purple. You could technically, I suppose, either that or one of the slightly lighter purples. You could mix in one of the brown contrasts and mix them together. Contrasts mixed together, I think, just fine. The issue is that if you try to water them down with water, they can get a little wonky. That's why you're supposed to water them down or thin them with the medium stuff, the contrast medium that they sell, of course. I've got some dental tools I use to clean up the back area of the pot. Oh, that's a good idea. Do I have dental tools? I might. Morning from all from Nebraska. Hope you're having a good day. Same to you. Just went through priming about 60 Vikings and Saxons by brush. This poor little brush really looks like it's been through some rough time. Yeah, that must have taken some time, for sure. Contrast on Squigs is fantastic. Oh yeah, no, I could easily see that. Still waiting on my 5 parsecs from Miniature Market. Ordered in May. I could get it in 2 days from Amazon right now. Yeah, I mean, I've got the PDF. And I just assumed that when the PDF came out or whatever, that it was already available to buy, like the print version. But I think that there's probably situations with global shipping right now where, Miniature Market, I'm assuming, is probably still waiting to get a reissue. So they probably sold the pre-order, or else they said, yeah, we'll take your money, but then didn't realize they didn't have any more, or sold out or whatever, and now it's on back order and it's a whole thing. Physical products are going to be screwy for the next year plus, unfortunately. But that seems to be getting things that are physically to your face in some fashion is going to be difficult. One of the reasons why I'm not super jazzed about trying any new Kickstarters right now. Let's see here. Whoops. Everything's scrolled again. So the demons are on a business trip. Could be. Got to get a 3D printer and print some angelic demons. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Sure. Are you excited about Army Painter's Speed Paint? I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to it. Like I said, it's coming out in 2022, which I did not realize. I thought it was coming out sooner, but it's coming out in 2022. But they sent me a dark blue and a dark brown and a gray. So I'm going to try those out, see what I think about them. Looking for a really vibrant red at the moment. Any tips? If you don't have a problem with contrast paints, or if you're already working in Zenithal anyway, the Blood Angels red is a spectacular red color, and especially if you're doing a black and white Zenithal, you get a really nice like fade. In the video I did not this week but 2 weeks ago, where I talk about Zenithal and stuff like that, there's a shot in there of the lady. She's from the Cursed City box set. She's mostly in like bright silver armor. She's got like a big furry, actually it's technically feathery, I'm assuming, kind of weird eagle kind of thing going on her shoulders. Like she found an eagle and it's like there's like a beak here, but it's all anyway. I did her cloak and her like tabard in the front, both in that just a simple layer of Blood Angels red contrast over a black and white Zenithal, and it just looks. I like it a lot. A big fan. I use that stuff all the time. Let's see here. Yo, that tip about contact lens cases just changed my life. Well, good to hear. Absolutely. I use contrast off my wet palette. My wet palette doesn't make my paints thinner, just keeps them from drying out, so it's not much of an issue. There you go. Reaper are some of my better paints, says Sanctus Ledum. Nice. I used to use blister packs for mixing paint till my supply ran out. That's always an issue, though, isn't it? Yeah. I love Reaper's MSP. Master Series Paints, I think is what MSP stands for. I usually get some when I place an order from their web store. Otherwise, they're inaccessible. Yeah, like I said, I just never see them around here, which is a bummer. Liquitex Bold Titanium White in the tube for the White Win. Nice. My FLGS sold P3. I really like their Meridus Blue for my Thousand Suns. Nice. For washes and dropper bottles, I use an upside-down 32mm GW circle base, one without the slot in it. It's thin, and I can store it in a wet palette, too. That's a good idea, yeah. I have a Vallejo pale gray wash. Maybe it's Vallejo then and not Reaper, but I know I have a pale gray wash that I like to use from time to time. I wish Monument paint was sold locally. They deserve to be more widely known as and used, and the shipping from their website is killing me. Yeah, I mean, if you're outside the country, for sure, yeah, it's troublesome. But I know that they are starting to do. They're working with either Element Games or Wayland Games. They're working with one of those companies over in the UK. And evidently they got a place in Singapore now, so that's closer to Australia to some degree. But yeah, and I know Canada, there's a place called Goblin Gaming? No. Ogre? Some sort of creature like that. And it's a store that's been getting the stuff from them, and they've been doing it. And I know people who are in Canada have been ordering from there, but I can't think of the name of the company, unfortunately. Somebody else here will probably know. Never seen Reaper paints around here. Even their miniatures are scarce here. There's a store. There's a couple of stores nearby me they carry a lot of Reaper. But yeah, they don't seem to carry the paints. Hey, Uncle Adam, did you start the OPR Patreon? I did. I started at Tier 1, which is, I think, like $5 a month. Basically so I could get access to the rules and things like that. Most of the messages I've gotten at Tier 1 are about all the cool free stuff I would get if I went to Tier 2 so far. So it's a little bit of a bummer. That it's just constant, like seriously, like in the last week, I've gotten at least 3 or 4 messages about, hey, we've got a new free thing for Tier 2 people. And you're like, all right, I guess if we're going to do that. I mean, technically, if you're going to, if you've got free stuff for Tier 2 people, you could send the message just to Tier 2 people, but then you don't get people who are Tier 1 to upgrade to Tier 2. I get that. I just don't need I don't want the models. You know what I mean? Not that I don't want them. I've bought some OPR models, but like a la carte. I'm like, oh, these guys are cool. I will buy these, and I do it on my mini factory. But I don't need access to all of the models and all that kind of stuff, everything like that going forward. I just wanted access to the rules and everything. But so far, yeah, I haven't had a chance to really sit down and dig into stuff. But the Army Builder is really the main thing I'm looking for there. Well, is it called the Army Builder? I don't know. It's basically like instead of having to use the stats that they have for not really Space Marines, not really Tau, not really Eldar, that kind of stuff, instead you can make your own things, and then and that's the thing that's cool about the Patreon. And they have a web-based version, but they also have a not print, but like a PDF version, which I think the PDF version gives you more, I don't want to say flexibility, but it does work. From what I can tell, it works a little bit better for the Grimdark Firefight, which is really what I'm interested in for that whole thing. I'm not playing their regular Grimdark game, not anything against them. It's just I don't want to play any more army games. I want to play skirmish games. I want to play small units. I don't want to, don't want to do army games. Any tips for working with contrast medium? I generally like to start with less than I think I need, because if you start with more than you think you need, then there's no way to fix that without adding in more paint and then just basically probably wasting more paint. So I have a tendency to err on the side of caution, I guess. I live in Vegas. Is LVO worth going to without paying? I'm new to painting Warhammer, so I'm not that level yet. I'm not 100% sure you can go without paying. I mean, maybe you can, but I'm not sure. And this year it's going to be in a completely different place. It's not going to be where it's been in the past several years. It used to be at the Bali/Paris, and now it's going to be at the Rio, I think. So that'll be a whole new thing for me too. Like Adepticon, you can show up, not buy a badge, go into the vendor hall, buy stuff, make the vendors happy, look at things, this, that, the other thing. It's great. You only need to buy a badge, really, if you want to take a class, if you want to play in an event, you want to do that kind of stuff. But you can totally show up and, like, check things out and give it a gander. But a lot of conventions don't do that. Gen Con, you can walk around in the outside part, kind of but if you want to go into the dealer hall and buy things, you need to buy a badge, which is a little weird in that you need to buy a badge so that you can buy things inside. But whatever. But yeah, that's like I said, I don't know. I know that at least with Las Vegas Open, the way it used to be, they used to have like a security guard person who would check for wristbands when you were like trying to walk back into the place. So that must be some sort of like, you got to be, But yeah, I would double check with them and see if that's interesting. But it's a good. Here's the thing: it's mostly a big series of tournaments. They do have a little bit of hobby stuff, like if you want to take some classes and things like that. But if you want to take classes, you have to buy a badge. It's not a huge vending area, so you're not necessarily missing out a ton there if you're just going to buy stuff. But it is kind of a nice little vending area because it's all specifically miniature-oriented stuff. And I've seen, that's where I first discovered Monument Hobbies, Pro Acryl paints. I bought some Victoria miniatures from there. I've checked out some of it. It's been generally good, but, you could also just buy a badge and hang out, and it would be a good time, too. Let's see here. Pull the collar and the top off the pot, push the top inside out, and paint gunk releases. Well, that's not a bad idea. I could see that. Let's see here. Goblin Gaming is a UK. Well, it's not Goblin Gaming, though. It's something in Canada, and it's something the Hooded Goblin in Ontario. That sounds right. I knew it had the word goblin in it. Hope my Army Painter contrasts are still cheaper. $8 for GW contrast is not alluring. It's a nice way of saying that, indeed. Let's see here. It looks like the next Kill Team box is Catachans versus Nids after the Sisters versus Tau box. Wonder how they will do the terrain for that one. New jungle terrain from GW. Imagine a green jungle themed game board. Huh. Catachans versus Nids. I mean, the Catachans could certainly use new sculpts. Honestly, the Cadians could too, but the Catachans are even older. So yeah, that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. Let's see here. I've used emulsion to paint figs, tanks, scenery, and everything for bases. Huh. Element Games in the UK currently waiting on container clearance for a back order of Pro Acryl. Yeah, we're all going to be waiting on container clearances for a while. We did get a free Pumpkinhead thing for OPR's Tier 1, so that's fun. Pumpkinhead, like from the horror movie? Huh. I initially ordered Pro Acryl directly from Monument, but UPS really screwed me on shipping. Monument Hobbies Company and their products are amazing, though. Well, that's no fun. The UPS thing, I mean. I think everything that I've ever gotten from them has always been via USPS, United States Postal Service, but I could be wrong. Let's see here. That unit builder is a lot of fun to use. It's the main selling feature for OPR for me now. I wonder if they'll work on a magic psychic abilities builder. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah, like one of the things I'd like to do with Grimdark Firefight is to make I don't want to say make my own game, because, well, we've already done that kind of once and working on the second one right now. But, like, I would like to be able to use the rules and then just kind of have, like, weird sort of random miniatures, as opposed to being like, oh, these guys are basically, they're not really Tau, or they're not really, there's a lot of game companies out there who do that, and it's not, it's not a dumb idea. It's not like you're going to lose money by making something that's compatible with other lines. I mean, if you look at Star Breach has got, in that book, a bunch of army lists that when you, hit myself with my little string here. I should pull the string out of this. Or maybe I did. Unfortunately. Oh, here we go. I got both my strings. All right. Star Breach has army lists in the back that you can start to read a list and go, like an army, and be like, oh, that's Imperial Guard. Okay, well that's Tau, or this, and it's kind of a little bit of wink and nod. This is not exactly Tau, that kind of thing. But then they also have Star Wars stuff in there too. So if you wanted to have, Stormtroopers versus Imperial Guard, you could do that, that kind of stuff, which is cool. They've also added in other lists that are just more general tropes, space pirates, nomads, stuff like that, and that's cool as well. But I don't know. I kind of like, the thing I like about games like Planet 28 and Space Weirdos is that you don't have army lists. You just go, I want to build, because you're not having to build in an army. You're building 6 people, or maybe 3 people and 4 robots, or whatever the deal is. You're just kind of building person by person, and then I kind of prefer that. So do you ever paint non-fantasy stuff? Would love to see your take on Bolt Action or Flames of War. I painted some Flames of War a long time ago, probably 8 years ago, roughly, when I first got into Flames of War for a little bit. So I painted some tanks. They're mostly green. It's I painted US, so it was pretty much green. I haven't played any of that stuff in quite some time. But yeah, I generally do stick to more fantasy, sci-fi, that kind of stuff. I'm not super into military games right now, at least not real military games. I would like to play Conflict 47, but I don't really know anybody around me who plays, so there's that. And I was interested in Dust to some degree, also not real military, but heading in that direction, or well, kind of. I do have, I did get my Empire's Fall Kickstarter from Gaddis Gaming. That was I kind of mentioned that last week. But that the level that I pledged at, it showed up painted. That was the idea, so I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, so I do have a tendency to focus on that kind of stuff. I guess technically, Zona Alpha is more realistic to some degree. You're painting private military contractors. You're painting maybe military dudes. But you also got cultists and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I've done a little bit of I've done some kind of military folks in that. I did a bunch of different guys from Eureka Miniatures that are all painted. They're all a bunch of they're in MOP gear, which is the whatever MOP stands for, I don't know what. Every time I say MOP gear, then someone explains what it means. But it's basically what I used to think of as NBC gear, which is nuclear, biological, chemical. Although I'm sure MOP is not necessarily the same stuff. But it's basically gear to protect you from the outside, which in Zona Alpha is exactly something you kind of want. So there's that. Flipping the GW paint pot lids inside out changed my life. I should look into that. There you go. Adam, your beard is getting big, my man. Yeah, I'm actually getting a haircut on Thursday, so I think I'm gonna see if she can gonna do a little bit of trimmage along here and maybe tidy that a bit up. Waiting for my Stargrave crew to dry. Been on a painting binge and now only have 40 minis left in my entire collection that aren't painted. Nice, good work, Michael. Let's see here. I wonder if I have more painted than unpainted. Never have done an inventory. You know, sometimes you don't want to do an inventory. I don't know. Some people like that kind of stuff. That's fine. I'm not. I would rather just be painting than counting, personally. Let's just say that. Next kill team should be Eldar, it feels like. Poor Eldar players have some old kits. They do have some old kits, it's true. Kill Team Krieg standalone box. No one knows when it'll be out. It will be allegedly out. So far they've said, yes, that stuff will be released separately. They haven't said when. Maybe next quarter? I don't know. Or is it this quarter? October, November. This is the fourth quarter, right? Yeah, we're in the fourth quarter. So maybe this quarter, but maybe next quarter. Let's see here. Will you ever make an army-level war game? I'd love to see what factions you could come up with. No. No. I don't like to play army-level stuff anymore, and so I don't see us doing that particularly. I mean, I guess never say never, but we've basically kind of decided at this point that it's pretty much everything is going to be skirmish-based. Pretty much everything going forward is going to be skirmish-based, and it's going to have solo and co-op kind of baked in, because that's a niche that we see growing, and also we're finding that it's easier to try to bake it in than it is to then produce a expansion later. You know what I mean? Like, the reason we released this expansion called the Oculus Spear for Reign in Hell is because we did not have chaos. We did not have solo / co-op play in Reign in Hell. So we put in a 6-part narrative campaign where you played the first one and then the second one, and you did it in order, and it tells a story. And then we also have, it's got the solo and the co-op stuff in there, so you can do that, and that's the whole concept. So going forward, like in the next game, it's going to have solo and co-op basically built in. If you still want to play adversarial, my crew versus your crew, you'll be able to do that. But for the most part, it's designed so that you can play it solo or co-op. So if you and your friend want to play, you can play against the game. So that's fun too. Sometimes you have friends that you don't like to play against because you get weird when you're losing against them, or they get weird when they're losing against you, or there's just too much competition. But when you're playing co-op, you're still having a fun time playing with a friend, but you're playing against the game, and then you can fight against it, and it's great. So, that's kind of the plan on the most. But again, if you also want to play against each other, you'll be able to have that ability to do so as well. I don't see us making any tournament-style games. I don't see us making any army-style games. Skirmish, narrative, pretty much one book. That's all you need, that kind of thing. Would we still do an expansion to maybe the next game if we decided to add more missions or something like that, just for variety? Maybe, but we'll see how it goes. I wish more games would embrace weird creatures in their own species, but also include kit bash instructions and where you could source things. I mean, we're still kind of slowly working on not a podcast, blog post about like a place that you can, places that you can go to find demon models. But honestly, like I was saying earlier, nearly anything can be a demon model. Nearly any D&D monster can be a demon. People have asked me, like, well, where do I get demon models? Literally everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, any place you want to go. Like, you look at this bugbear, or owlbear, or what is those, the mind flayers, or any of that kind of stuff from like D&D, like any kind of nearly every WizKids model that's not like a person, or like an elf or a dwarf or a human or whatever, but like any kind of monster that could be a demon. That's one of the reasons that initially, when I first came up with the concept for Reign in Hell, I went with demons because the idea in my mind was nearly anything can be a demon. So you've got sky's the limit as far as the actual models you can pick to use in that game, and that was the idea. Like next game being sci-fi, you know, if you want to use like elves and dwarves and stuff like that with battle axes and crossbows, you can, certainly. No one's going to stop you. But you're going to probably aim yourself a little bit more towards science fiction stuff. But there's tons and tons of different science fiction stuff out there too. And again, you'll be able to use all kinds of different things. That's kind of the idea. We don't really have any plans to ever make a game where we actually create our own miniatures. There's a possibility down the road where we may commission somebody to make some STLs that are specific to that game, but don't need to be. Like, you could use them for this game, but you could also use other stuff. I mean, we're not sure yet, but basically we don't see ourselves making a miniature line. I don't want to sell and ship miniatures. That sucks. You know what I mean? Like, it's just really hard. It's way more work than I want to go through, to be perfectly honest, because this is my third job, right? You know what I mean? This game design thing. I've got 2 other jobs already between the YouTube channel and my normal day job. So we want to sell you a book, and then, you know, you get to have the fun of figuring out what models you want to use, as opposed to like, we sold you this book, but now you got to buy our models because that's what you're supposed to use in this game. We don't want to be like that. That's just personal preference. Richard Bradley, GW, geeks tend to assume that when they get new models, they will get new OP rules. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think sometimes it's just because sculpting has changed so much. I thought there was a squirrel on a bird feeder, but it's just very windy. Sculpting has changed, like the technologies have changed and all that kind of stuff. So you look at these models, like you look at the new stuff that comes out constantly, and there's constantly new stuff coming out. That's kind of how these things work. You see another Primaris Lieutenant, and you're like, wow, that is an amazing looking sculpt. That is really nice. And then you go looking at your models from 20 years ago when they were last sculpted, and they might have not even been sculpted digitally. They might have been sculpted like with green stuff, on an armature and all that kind of stuff. And you're just kind of like, I just wish that we had something cool looking like that, but I still got this, And if you're all in on this army and not interested in changing to a different army, then you're like, could you guys make new stuff for me? And, I understand that. Again, the way that, especially when you get to be a company the same size of Games Workshop's, you need to keep churning. You have to constantly keep producing. And the question that comes out quite frequently is like, you keep producing, but you don't ever produce the thing I want over here. This is 20 years old, but this is our 15th, Primaris Lieutenant this quarter. Why is that? Well, the answer is because these sell and these kind of don't. Like, if they thought, we could make a boatload of money by making new Eldar, they would have made new Eldar a long time ago. And there's a lot of people out there that are like, but I love Eldar, and everybody loves Eldar, but evidently the sales numbers don't seem to back that up. Anytime a company doesn't do a thing, and you're like, why don't they do a thing? It's because they don't think it'll make money. It's not because they're jerks. It's not because they're like trying to stick it to the man, or I don't know what, or they hate elves. I mean, I'm not a big elf fan. Let's be perfectly frank. But if it was like, if I was running a business that makes money, and I thought I could make so much money by making elves, I would make elves. That's kind of how it works. So yeah, that's unfortunately, I think that's the case. They understand that people buy Space Marines like crazy, and you can talk all day long about how Space Marines are dumb or boring or whatever, but they sell. Capitalism. There you go. That's the way it works. That's where we're at. So yeah, that seems to be the case. And I mean, maybe they'll put out some kit with like some new Eldar stuff, maybe for Kill Team, and it will just sell like hotcakes. And it'll be so amazing, and everyone will be so excited, and then they'll go, maybe we should make more of that. Could happen, that'd be great. There's Eldar in the new Adepticus Flyeronicus game, so you got that going for you. Those weird Eldar pointy ships are that they fly. So but I don't know. It's interesting. Why did they? You'd think that Imperial Guard would be a big seller. They released new Imperial Guard, which is just Imperial Guard sprues from the early 2000s, but with a new sprue of heads and some weapons in there. And I was like, I kind of figured you would have decided to redo the Guard a little bit. Now, if allegedly these Catachans for the new Kill Team are coming out, I'm assuming there'll be new sculpts, but we don't know that for sure. I mean, technically, the Sisters of Battle and the new one are supposed to be new sculpts, but the Pathfinders are, according to Games Workshop's own website, going to be the regular Pathfinders, but with an extra sprue thrown in there with extra stuff. So they're kind of going in a hybrid model there, where they're resculpting these things or making new sculpts for these things, maybe sculpts that didn't even exist ever, and now they're also using some of this. So I think they're going to keep, they've obviously got people there whose job it is just to figure out what's the best way to make money. Like if we do this and this and this, and we run these things and we figure out this is how much this costs to produce and this is how much this costs to not produce, it's the way it works when you get to be a big multi-billion-dollar corporation. Let me see here. I was talking for a long time. Let me see. I like the idea of skirmish games with a small squad of models, but I also like tanks. Well, you could play Flames of War. They got lots of tanks in that. Or even more tanks, probably Team Yankee. That's a good one, too. Let's see here. Do you have people locally who play Infinity? There's a decent amount of people, not like local, but there's a decent amount of people in Wisconsin, from what I understand. Specifically, Milwaukee, kind of south of me, and like kind of heading up towards like the Wausau kind of area, where there's a decent amount of people to play Infinity. Sam plays Infinity. He likes Infinity. Yep. I would check out Conflict 47 if I could convince my gaming buddy. They do a 2-player starter. I don't know they do a 2-player starter, but they do 1-player starters where you can buy like a box and then it comes with some troops and a book and like not a tank. Well, yeah, it's actually technically a tank, and also like a mech kind of a thing, like that. What are your thoughts on the Chalnath announcement? I don't know what that means. Sorry, I don't know what Chalnath means. Mission-oriented protective posture. That's a terrible name. That's what MOP stands for, but it's a terrible name. I like NBC better. Let's see. I learned this week that the original Conflict 47 makers, Clockwork Goblin, is working on a deal with Plastic Soldier Company to make new 15mm miniatures for the game. Oh, well, I mean, for people who like that kind of thing, that'll be the kind of thing that they like. I don't like 15mm scale. Just don't. I think that's a big portion of why one of the many reasons why I kind of stopped playing Flames of War, even though technically they're closer to 20, but, still. I need a name for a near-future sci-fi RPG with O'Neill Cylinders, Space Pirates. I thought that said Space Piranhas for a second, and the Jupiter Corporation. You need a name, like you're working on that, and you need to come up with a name, or that stuff. You need to know what the name of that game already is. That I don't know either way. It's growing in my head. So you're making it. All right. Yeah, I got nothing. How do you know when someone doesn't like Space Marines? Don't worry, they'll tell you. Nice. Is Snarling Badger buying all the Dust property, or will you have to say, no, we're not buying that because of an NDA? Oh, snap. No, we're not buying that, and it's not because of an NDA. It's because we don't have that kind of money, I'm sure. I mean, like, Vince and I have kicked around the idea of, like, is there a game out there where we could just buy the IP, rewrite it a bit, do re-layout, and be done with it? We don't know that we would ever do that. Maybe. But, we kind of like designing our own thing. And so there's that. Also, then it's cheaper if we just design our own thing. Like, if we got to the point where it became, like, this was a bigger business for us, and maybe one of us, let's say me, quit their jobs and just worked on this, and also the YouTube channel, and then Vince continued to do what he wanted to do because he doesn't seem like he wants to get rid of his job. I mean, I don't want to get rid of my job either, but if one of us did it, it would probably be me more than him because I think he makes more money than I do. But anyway, what was my point? Oh, so anyway, then maybe some sort of thing, not so much like a licensing thing. I would not ever be interested, frankly, in writing a game that was like based off of a TV show or a movie or I don't care. But like a game that had fallen by the wayside and ended. Like I know a guy who he and a partner recently bought the rights to Mercs. I don't know if you remember Mercs from back in the early 2010s and stuff. Mercs was a game designed by two guys named Keith and Brian, and maybe a third guy, but I think it was just those are the only two guys that I really knew. Cool game, sci-fi, like early, like late 2100s kind of stuff. A lot of mega corporations fighting against each other and stuff like that. Neat models, great artwork. I loved Keith's artwork. And a guy I know and a partner has bought that because they had kind of gone out of business, the Mercs people. And so they're going to try to bring it back and go down that road. I could see doing something like that maybe, but that's a best case scenario. Otherwise, in general, we're a little bit more happy to kind of do our own things. But as far as like Dust, yeah, I mean, just the amount of manufacturing and plastics and molds and all that stuff, that's got to be a big, 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 big price tag for someone to buy all that stuff. Someone very possibly will, but not Mr. Vincent and I, that's for sure. Core mechanics and expansions is always a recipe for disaster, if you ask me, at least in video games. Core mechanics and expansions. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, again, like I said, the expansion was, for us, it was adding solo and co-op play, and that was, yeah, that it was a necessity more than anything because we didn't have it in the original game. Now, if you just want to play against your friends, and have games against each other and stuff like that, the game totally works that way. But there were people that were saying, but I don't have any friends to play with because I don't live near people who play, or my friends and I don't. We like to play co-op stuff, and so we wanted to go down that road too. But it's not a necessity. It's only if you want to play solo and co-op, then you get the expansion, and if you don't, then you don't. So yeah, and also the expansion was pay what you want, so you could download it for free if you wanted to, or you could give us some bucks. That's fine too, and it's been working out just fine. But yeah, like I said, going forward, we're planning on having that stuff built into the game. Have you given any thought to creating a battle royale type skirmish game? They have been popular in video games for the past several years. No. And the reason I think probably is because generally, I mean, obviously in battle royale games you've got duos and quads, but generally it's one person, or it's multiple people controlling. Like, it's not one person controlling four characters. Obviously, it's four different players playing together as a quad, like squad thing. So I don't know how well that would work. That being said, there are some things here and there from video games that we have been kicking around the idea of, like, well, this is kind of an interesting idea from a video game. And I'm not even talking story, I'm talking mechanics. This would be a nice thing to have maybe in a tabletop game. Stuff that people kind of haven't thought about before. I mean, frankly, the titles that are in Reign in Hell are kind of like Xbox achievements. When I was originally coming up with the idea for the game, I'm like, I want there to be, like, as you play the campaign, you might do something that gives you a title, And then not only is it just like here's the thing, Xbox achievements, they don't do anything. They're just like, hey, I got an Xbox achievement. It's a collection. Great. Okay, cool. I wanted something like that, but I also wanted it to give that character a specific special rule for the rest of the campaign. And so that was kind of the benefit of doing the whole titles thing in that. So that's kind of pulled from video games, but we've got some other ideas as well. Like, I was watching some people on Twitch recently play Battlefield 4, maybe? Yeah, I think it was Battlefield 4. And if you're a medic, you can throw down like a bag, like a medic bag, and then other people can, like, not just pick it up one-time use, but it'll sit there for X amount of time, and people will walk past it, and it will heal them and stuff like that. And so we were kicking around the idea of, like, well, what if you had some sort of, like, if you had a class in the game that had ability to throw down a token, almost like an objective, but it would heal within a radius, not just within the radius of the guy, but they could set it up, and it would do it, so little things like that. Maybe potentially something that could end up in a game at some point. Games like Rangers of Shadow Deep are far more enjoyable in co-op rather than solo, in my experience. I mean, there are plenty of people out there that like solo play. I like solo play sometimes; it's fun. But yeah, co-op is probably it's probably more interesting for people who are definitely have people to play, against or with in general. That's the case. Do you have an experience with Gundam kits? I own one, and I've never built it. The reason I bought it was because I was like at the hobby, and this wasn't a hobby store, this was a Hobby Town USA, and I was looking at, because the thing that's interesting about Hobby Town is that every one of them is kind of different, and this one has got like a lot of Gundam stuff, and I was like, oh, look at that. And so I was just kind of looking at a bunch of stuff, and I saw this model that was kind of cool, and I'm like, I kind of like that one. That one's kind of neat. And person who's been buying models from Games Workshop in my head for quite some time was like, oh, that's probably a $60 model, and it was $14. I was like, why is that? And I keep meaning to make a video about why are Gundams so much cheaper than and I don't know. There's a lot of reasons, I'm sure, and I'd have to do some research, which is partially why I haven't done it yet. That being said, I did buy that model. I just haven't built it yet. Co-op is definitely preferred because it makes it easier to be a leader and get other people to play since you can make multiple teams. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that if you're going to write solo play, you've basically written co-op. There's in most situations, specifically in Oculus Spear, this is how it works in solo. If you're going to play the same thing in co-op, just add this many more bad guys. It's just, for us at least, for the most part, it has been a situation of like, just, add more monsters or whatever to fight against. Now, you could go and say, if you need to get this objective in solo, maybe you need to get these 2 objectives in co-op or whatever, that kind of stuff. And I can see that making sense too in certain situations, certain types of, what do you call them? Campaign objectives, whatever. Scenarios is the word I'm looking for. You need a little bit more coffee. So yeah, that kind of stuff, I think. But again, like I said, once you've written solo, you've basically written co-op, at least as far as the way we're doing it. The idea of co-op miniatures games has been fascinating to me as of late, and it sounds like I need to pick this one up to read through too. Yeah. It looks like this. You can get it as a PDF, or you can get it as a printed book with the PDF for free. So basically, PDF is $10, book is $15, but you get the PDF with it as well for free. So you don't have to pay $25 to get the PDF and the book. Is my point. It's 64 pages. It's all black and white on the inside. I think it's well laid out because I did the layout. There's monsters and stuff in it, and that's a picture of a model that I painted, and then we sent those photos to a guy named Scott over at Artists Empire, who you should be following on Twitch and YouTube and other places like that. So like, this is a photo. These are 3 models that I painted from 3D prints, and then I photographed them on a white background, and I added in a lot of shadow and stuff like that because I'm a photographer, so I know how to light. I know how to make a white background but still have decent shadows on the models. And then I sent it to him, and I was like, I'm looking for fire and brimstone and this and that. And then so he just digitally painted all the rest of the stuff and all that jazz, and it's spectacular. Cover, ink, pen and ink, done by a person that I found on Twitch. And yeah, it turned out great. So again, $10 for the PDF, $15 for the book and the PDF, $15 plus shipping, But there's a facility in both the United States and the UK, so if you live overseas, like in the UK or Europe, it'll be shipped to you faster and cheaper than if you were to get it made in America and shipped over, because it's print on demand, but it's really nice quality. Looking for modern games. I know you're staying away from Kickstarter, but Enemy Spotted just did one for a modern game called Kill Wager. Or is it Kill Wager? No, it should be Kill Wager. Skirmish level lets you equip troops like Kill Team, etc. Well, that's kind of cool. I mean, eventually once it comes out, maybe I'll take a look at it. If they have, like, if they make it Kill Team only, or Kill Team, if they make it Kickstarter only, like they only produce it through Kickstarter and they aren't going to have it for sale after Kickstarter, I think that's the wrong way to go. Frankly, if you're going to do a Kickstarter, you should do it to not only get this game out to people, but also make it possible that you could then sell it at retail or whatever, or at least through your website, that kind of thing. So hopefully they do that, and I might take a look at it then. But that's the thing too that's kind of, I don't know, the Kickstarter thing has been sort of annoying to me lately to some degree. Again, and if this is a small company, then it makes sense why they might be doing it, because it's, they wouldn't be able to afford to be able to do it otherwise. Our game wasn't particularly expensive to produce, so we just kind of, the artwork wasn't crazy expensive, and that's the most expensive part of that. If we were to get those printed traditionally and then just have 5,000 out of them and be sitting on them and stuff like that, that would have been expensive. But because we were doing it print on demand, there was basically very little upfront cost except for the artwork, and then of course the time that it took for us to design it and lay out and all that jazz. So I get that if you don't have that, if you're not going in that direction or whatever, or you're going to have a big model line or something like that, then yeah, Kickstarter. But I can't tell you how many times I've walked up to a booth at Gen Con and been very interested in what they've got here going on at the booth. And you're like, this is very cool. I really like this. How much does it cost? And they're like, oh, well, it's not for sale. We have a Kickstarter starting in 3 months. And you're just like, okay, so then we're not going to see it for another year or so. Yeah, it's the opposite of instant gratification is what it is. And yeah, sometimes that bothers me. So if there's a little piece of advice I can give you, if you're interested in writing a game, just figure out a way to do it outside of Kickstarter, maybe, if you can. It's not for everybody. Or, if it's a situation, if you're using Kickstarter to make money for the art, write as much of it as possible, get it as close as possible, get your Kickstarter, and then, print on demand, whatever, ship it off, or figure something out that way. But the big thing that for me is killing Kickstarters right now is the wait, is the amount of time it takes between the time the Kickstarter happens and the time you actually get it. And that wait's only going to get worse for the next couple of years because of all of the global supply chain issues that we're having. So, yeah, think digital. PDFs are your friend. Let's see here. I'm making a cabal based off of the outfits Captain Beefheart and his magic band wore. Nice. Is there a name for the style of game that's halfway between Big Army and Skirmish, basically a bigger Skirmish game? If you look at something like Bolt Action, they'll call a Skirmish game sometimes, but it's got like 30 guys in a tank in it. And then I'm like, that's like small army in my opinion, but really it's semantics at that point. I don't know if there's a specific name for it, though. Small army, maybe? I guess you could say that. Skarmy? That's maybe. Do you subscribe to the rule of cool? Well, look at me. Kidding. When selecting weapon options for your kill team models, I'm still learning the rules and not sure what would be best. There's a lot of people out there who will... There's an idea out there, a trope, a motto, perhaps, that is boys before toys. Now, that sounds weird, but what it means is if you're building an army for any kind of miniature style game, whether it's an army game or a skirmish game, it is generally better for you to have more people, boys, than it is for you to have more fancy guns, toys. So when you are starting off specifically for a campaign, in most situations, if you're starting off a campaign and you're like, well, I only can take 4 guys, but they've all got rocket launchers with laser targeting well, that's cool, but now you've spent a bunch of your resources on just 4 people, and as soon as the first one dies, which they will eventually, now you're down to 3/4 power. Whereas if you had basically people with just regular rifles and you had 9 of them, you don't lose as much when a person dies. You know what I mean? And then especially if you're playing in a narrative campaign, these folks are going to upgrade as you go along. Generally, that's the way narrative campaigns work, is that you get upgrades in some fashion. So giving them a whole bunch of crap right at the beginning is not necessarily the best bet. So you see what I'm saying? So the concept of boys before toys means you start out with as many models as you can take and don't worry so much about magical amulets and power armor and all the other junk. You kind of get that over time. Even if you're not playing a campaign, if you're playing like a one-off game, there are people out there that will say it is a smarter idea strategically to still just more bodies and less fancy weapons and stuff like that. I still like fancy weapons. I mean, my Deathcore Krieg kill team has got both a plasma gun and a melta-gun in it, and I had to kit bash that because you weren't able to do that with the way that the kit's built because they both share this arm or whatever. And so it's a thing like that. So, yeah. But yeah, you can do what you want, especially if it's going to be fun for you. I would definitely tell you that. But if you're looking to be also strategic, the thing that I hear quite frequently, and don't necessarily adhere to myself, I'm not going to lie, but the thing that I hear frequently is, boys before toys. So I kit bash Japanese robot kits into game pieces. So much fun. Lots of spare bits, sheet and strip styrene, wire, guitar strings, whatever looks cool. Looking cool is it's cool. What do you think of a game where every model/unit was a named character? So Minotaur is a short girl with such and such abilities. It's something I'm considering for one of my projects. That's kind of Malifaux. Malifaux is a very character-oriented game. Most of the a lot of the models have a name. Now, admittedly, there are punk zombies. There are, riot breaker robots. There are a little bit of, there are some kind of like, I don't want to say chaff, but they are definitely like, this is unnamed henchman number 4. But there's a lot of named characters in there. There's a lot of crews. They call them crews. There's a lot of crews where like nearly everybody's got a name. You know what I mean? Like they've got a personality or a thing, and that's very cool. And that brings a certain type of player to that game. But if you're going to be very specific and say, oh, this person is this and this person is that, and you're trying to make a miniature game based off of that, you very possibly end up having to make your own miniatures, which then puts you into a whole different situation, right? So part of what I like is the fact that pretty much every game that I think we're going to produce is going to be you make your own people. We're not going to be like, oh, this is so-and-so, and they're well known within the game, and blah, 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 and that's what we want you to be able to make the cool stuff that you want to make. Now, I understand there are people out there that are like, no, I don't want to do that. That's your job. You make the cool stuff that I then buy and build. And that's fine. But that, it's just, as it is, the people who've pushed back a little bit on Reign in Hell who are like, but you're not telling me what models I need to buy. So I'm not going to play because I don't know what I need to buy. Those people, it's fine. It's what they want to do. I look at games where I'm not told this is what you need to buy as cool. I get to come up with my own cool stuff. Other people don't look at it that way. They're like, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to get. You know what I mean? And it's just different ways of looking at it. But we're generally focusing more on the, oh, cool, I get to figure out what I want to use for this, as opposed to the people who are like, no, you got to tell me what to buy. I'll buy it and put it together the way that you told me to put it together, and then name it the way you name it. Maybe even paint it the way you told me to paint it. That's fine too. But that's not probably what we're really about. So, afternoon from Glasgow. Just sat down to paint some Lord of the Rings models using tips from your Zenithal video. Avoided contrast for a while, but your video convinced me to give them a try. Cheers. Well, absolutely, James. I don't want to say I avoided. I kind of avoided when I first, because I got the contrast paints in June of 2019. It was actually during the last Tabletop Minions Expo. It was like literally that weekend they showed up in a box, and my friend Matt, because they got shipped to my job, my day job, and actually it wasn't on. I think they showed up on Friday, and I wasn't working Friday because I was setting up the convention and all that stuff. So he brings the box on Saturday to the convention, and that's so I was like, oh, look at all this stuff. So that was cool. So that was the stuff, but I didn't use it for a good long time because I had looked at a lot of models that were painted with the contrast paint, and I was kind of like, when you completely just do everything in like white or one of the colors that they suggest, like Gray Seer or Wraithbone, and then you just do it's fine, but it's not what I like. I like a little bit darker, a little bit grungier kind of look. And then a friend of mine sent me some pictures that he had done where he had taken some orcs that he just had lying around, and he'd primed them dark brown and then zenithalled them from above with a white, and then started using the contrast colors over them. And he was like, check out this model. I painted it in 45 minutes. And I was like, that looks really good. And he's like, it's because I did this brown and white zenithal. And then I started messing with different zenithals and stuff like that. And that's become my technique now. Like just about everything I paint these days, pretty much everything I paint these days is a zenithal. And then it's very frequently a lot of contrasts, washes, those types of transparent colors. I just like the way it looks, and I think it comes out pretty decent. So yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely a fun thing, and you should check it out. Missed the beginning, so show will now be the every Sunday show? No, just this week. So I had been on the same schedule all throughout the pandemic, and everything was fine. And then Gen Con popped up a couple weeks ago. Well, no, it was a month ago. I went to Gen Con in Indianapolis back in mid-September, and I had to shift the every other Sunday show because I was in Indianapolis when it was supposed to happen, and internet, we didn't even have, well, we could have gotten the internet turned on in the room, but we didn't pay for it, and hotel internet sucks usually anyway, and it's a whole thing. So I didn't do an Every Other Sunday show while I was in Indianapolis. So then the schedule got off a week, and then everything was screwy. Well, I have 2 more shows that I'm going to this year, and then 1 show in January that I'm going to, and they all fit in between the old schedule. So the reason that we did a show last week and this week is so that we could get back onto the old schedule, and then we won't have any problems at least until probably Adepticon. Actually, I have no idea. But yeah, March, hopefully. I don't think I have any shows that or anything I'm going to. Well, I have a thing I might go to in February, but it's probably only Saturday, so it wouldn't be a problem. But anyway, so that's just the point, is that I'm doing this so that I can get back on schedule, and then, so I figured it was either go 3 weeks without a show or do 2 in a row. So I just thought, let's do 2 in a row, get her out of the way. So yeah, it's not a new thing, it's just trying to get back on track. I love the chain of this isn't selling, so we won't make more, so people won't buy more, so it won't sell better. Again, like I said, I mean, this is not my idea, but I have a very strong suspicion that they've done marketing stuff. I don't know, surveys, who knows. Or else they've just looked at previous sales and they're comparing. I mean, sure, if they put out a bunch of amazing stuff, spent a boatload of money on a bunch of, amazing new Eldar models, I mean, I wouldn't buy them. Obviously not everybody, but I wouldn't buy them just because I don't like Eldar. Even if they're like great Eldar sculpts, they're still Eldar sculpts, and I don't like the big cone heads and the dumb guns and all that stuff. Just not my jam. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying they're not my thing, and I'm also not saying that I'm everybody. That all being said, they're, as a big company, risk adverse. So if they thought, let's spend $1 million coming out with an entire new line of Eldar, and it would probably cost at least that. I mean, just for the molds and the design time and all that stuff, the wages that they got to pay people to sit there for 3 years and design all this new stuff and go through all that jazz, and then put it out there, and then if it doesn't sell well, I mean, it'll make its money back, probably, especially how expensive the GW stuff is, but if it doesn't make enough profit, then that's where the issue comes in. So a big portion of that company, when you get to that size, is people who don't game. They just sit there and they push around, spreadsheets, and that's how they get to be that big. So, yeah, I don't know. I would love it to everybody to get new models all the time, but they're not that big of a company, as it turns out. So, yeah. Let me see here. Small army? Smarmy. That's got another meaning, though. But I appreciate it, though. You're pretty close there, VJ Morph. Let me see. I'm way behind here, and I apologize. Gotta go get my Rain Hell reprint with the fixed PDF and Oculus Spear. Nice. I have no problem painting small miniatures. I've painted hundreds of stands of epic infantry. Actually quite easy to paint. It's a little to see it at table distance. Sure, I can see that. No TV tight-ends. I was hoping for Snarling Badger Brady Bunch tabletop game. Well, that would be something. Marcia is a barbarian. She'll take you down. Scored a hardcover copy of Stargrave at my local shop. Nice. Kalnathar, a Star Trek race. Huh. I have no idea. Leaks from some time ago, which turned out accurate so far, said there will be a new Eldar models coming out probably next year. Similar line refreshes, Necrons and Orcs, so there's a chance. I mean, I assume it's going to happen eventually. I think the reason it hasn't happened at this point is just, again, like for the reasons I mentioned. Going back through here. Yeah, let's see here. Not avoiding using contrast paints. I'm just too damn cheap. That's fine. Surprising number of people who seem to think that GW's focus on Space Marines is due to some evil conspiracy or something and not simply down to a profit motive. That's exactly it. That's, yeah. I thought I saw something, but then it disappeared. How different is bolt action from Conflict 47? I know that there's some overlap in models since you can just reuse the same infantry dudes. I believe the main rule set is very similar. There's just, sometimes you have laser tanks, and with regular bolt action you don't. But otherwise, I think the overall like play loop and the stats and things like that, a lot of that stuff is very similar. And you're right. You can also be like, well, I have a unit of guys with Tommy guns, and I can take them from bolt action, and they can just be Tommy gun guys over here in Conflict 47. You still need guys with Tommy guns. It's just that sometimes they also are like, okay, well, we're hanging out here too with I don't know, werewolves. I'm not sure. Snarling Badger presents AT-43. Man, that would be that was a cool game. I liked AT-43. Again, we don't have that kind of money. I think 2+ Tough just bought a game IP to create a narrative army game. I swear Vince just told me that recently. Yeah, I think he is working on something like that. I mean, smaller games, and especially if you're not buying a model line, very frequently can be not crazy expensive, And by crazy expensive, I don't exactly know what I mean. I don't know. Maybe less than $10,000. I have no idea. Depends on, I guess, on how big the IP was before or things like that. But maybe if it was a real small IP and you're just like, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, so therefore I'll buy what they had and then I'll just tweak it and do whatever. Maybe you can get away for $3,000. I don't know. But yeah, that's definitely War for Atlantis game with Fishmen. I do like Fishmen. Sentry Box here in Calgary has good 50mm stock. Buying Zvezda off of eBay is reasonably affordable as well. Nice. Robot Squirrels. Yeah. I was referring to the Kill Team Chalnath box announcement at Gen Con with my comment above. Is that what? That's what the new. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. The new box is Tau versus Sisters of Battle. Right. I forgot that was the name of it. Let's see here. Something like World of Warcraft Shaman Totem Auras would be fun for a skirmish game. Yeah. Let's see here. Took me a month to build my Gundam with the miniature painting skills I have fostered. This one's not huge. He's not super fancy. So, which, again, he's $14, so I assume not, but yeah. Let's see here. Bandai has been making multi-part snap-fit pre-colored multi-material kits that are way more complex than anything GB makes for the last 30 years for at a quarter of the price. So they're probably pretty good at it by now, so maybe that's part of the price difference as well. Bandai is also way bigger than GW. Could be. I have no idea. You're probably right. I mean, they make video games too, right? Don't they? Or am I thinking of somebody else? I know Konami, but anyway, I think Bandai makes video games too. I want a Knight Rider skirmish game. Each player has a couple of drivers and a smart car. Huh. Interesting. Let's see here. Best part about Kickstarter as a small-time writer is it gives you a big enough chunk of money that you can fund your next project if you set it aside. Yes, I suppose. I mean, again, it depends on what you're doing, Yeah, that could be. Let's see here. Combat Patrol. Yeah, Combat Patrol is kind of in that situation as far as the small army kind of thing. Let's see here. Army and Skirmish equals Armish. No, that doesn't come across right, I don't think. I can recall playing games that seemed wedged between Skirmish and Army. You could just build a force that was small to large. You had units, but they didn't have super strict formation. Sure. Toys Before Boys in my Orc Army. There you go. Smarmy needs to be a word. I mean, it is technically a word. To be smarmy is like, it's like you're a little slickly slimy, and not like in texture, but like, I don't know, like you're maybe being nice for the reason of you're trying to get something out of somebody, kind of smarmy or whatever. I don't think that's quite right, but yeah, smarmy is like that guy's real smarmy. You know what I mean? That's not something I made up. I'm pretty sure. I keep hitting the mic here. Sorry. Let's see here. Winning is overrated compared to the pleasures of putting the coolest model on the table. That's true. It's very true. A lot of people who are enjoying, or sorry, a lot of people who are joining my Rain and Hell Facebook group are really into STLs, and quite a few say they sculpt their own. Pretty great stuff. Yeah, that's very cool to see too. I've been really enjoying seeing that stuff. I yeah, I think it's really interesting to see like the new things that are coming out in the STL space. There's really just a bunch of amazing stuff, and I really dig that. So yeah, I still don't have my 3D printer set up. I've got a bunch of chores I gotta get done today here around the house. I have a lot of cardboard I have to recycle. So many things show up in boxes. But yeah, so I have to do a bunch of that, and I also do want to do some basement, so a little bit more basement cleaning. I did a little tiny bit yesterday, not much, but some. So I do want to do some more, try to keep momentum, that kind of thing, because I want to be able to set up my 3D printer so that I can print some little tiny peoples. Contrast paints are great, but you could also use inks with a medium water mix, and you'll get very similar results. To some degree, yes, I think that's the case. But I think that it's also, at least from what I've seen, they'll collect in the kind of crevices and things relatively well, depending on the size of the crevices. But they don't. I find that they don't pull away from the from the pointy bits to highlight as easily. I don't know. I like to use washes in certain situations, but I don't know. It's kind of back and forth. I've been a big fan of the contrast paints. I use them quite a bit. Ash Barker is the wizard of contrast paints. I never cease to be amazed with what he does with them. Yeah, you can do quite a lot, honestly. I feel a strange need for more cyber hounds, along with unfulfilled desire for space lizards with lasers. There should be space lizards with lasers, that's for sure. I was just digging around recently, and I found my test model that I did, where I took lizardmen and I put... Let's see, I took lizardmen and I gave them an old school bolter, not like the ones, the newer ones, but kind of the older bolters from the back in the like 90s. And then instead of a shield, they were using the dome of like a Tau, whatever those little floaty dudes are, drones or whatever, and that. So that was pretty cool. Just got a text from my wife. Let's see here. I just picked up a bunch of eBay Rescue Rogue Trader Monopose Terminators and second edition Monopose Space Marines to make a Retro Hammer army. Do you think I should go 90s painting or modern Grimdark? I'd go modern. I think that'd be kind of cool, but that's because I kind of don't like 90s painting too much these days. Do you play much Gaslands? I haven't played any since the pandemic, unfortunately. I'm having the best time building models for it. It feels like punk rock. It is. I have built a little bit of stuff for it and not gotten as far painting as I would have liked with it. But I have the dice now. I was kind of not faking the dice. I was like, you'd use regular dice and I have to try to remember what the numbers were. But now I have actual like laser engraved dice or whatever they got off of Etsy. So that's cool. So I do want to be able to play again soon. But I've also got Car Wars. So yeah, I don't know. I actually have gotten further painting Car Wars because I don't have to build them. They're already built. You prime them and start going. But yeah. Oh dear, everything's scrolled. Let's see here. Conventions should coordinate better so as to not interrupt the every other Sunday show. I've been saying that for years. Can we do a Tabletop Minions get-together at Adepticon? Usually do, yeah. Usually try to schedule something. I think 2019 Adepticon, me and Sam scheduled something basically together, and people just came and hung out with us and sat around, and it was fun. Let's see. Where can you buy Oculus Spear again? If you go to raininhellgame.com, and it's rain, not like it falls on your head, but rain, REIGN, inhellgame.com. You can go there. I'd love to see you go back to the topic of eBay treasures. Players can find tons of pre-painted, pre-built models for low price. The issue of having with eBay lately is just that I don't know what I want. You know what I mean? Like, the last eBay thing that I did was that cool, crazy vampire dude that I used for my... what was I using that for anyway? My Death Army? Yeah, I was going to use it for my Death Army that it never really kind of completely solidified for Age of Sigmar. So I knew what model I wanted, and I just searched till I found it. But then lately I've been like, I don't know what model I want. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I've looked around a little bit, but I haven't been able to find like what I'm really looking for. Because if I can find what I'm looking for, then I can buy like one that's just caked in paint, and then I can strip it and redo it or whatever. Because I do want to do, again, some Uncle Adam's miniature hot mess. I want to do another series of that, but I haven't been able to find the model right now. You know what I mean? Have you gotten your hands on the Army Painter contrast alternatives? They sent me 3 bottles, dark blue, dark brown, and a gray. But I haven't got a chance to mess with them yet. They look interesting, but I don't know how I feel about contrast through a dropper bottle. GW pots suck, but they're good for washes and contrast. I agree. We were talking about that earlier. I kind of wish that they came in pots, but they're not going to do pots. I understand that. Just like GW is probably never going to do dropper bottles. Let's see. I don't know if this was mentioned before, but the price for the new Underworlds box is laughable. I haven't seen the price of the new Underworlds box. I think if they can breathe some new life into the aesthetic of the Eldar, they could do real well. Part of the issue, I think, is that their design language looks very Y2K. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I love the Carmen faction from the AT-43. I love the Space Gorilla Yetis. They were very cool. I agree. Did anyone catch Gorilla Miniatures video on the game Ash is working on for Death Ray Designs? Oh, that's cool. I'm glad that he's working with Death Ray Designs. That's cool. No, I haven't seen anything about that, though. That's cool. Because he's done a bunch of stuff for Osprey. I know he did Last Days, Gamma Wolves, which is like a robot game. There might have been a third one. I don't remember. I know definitely those 2, but I don't remember if he had a third one or not. But that's cool that he's working with those guys. I'm trying to figure out how to best paint white fur, and wondering, is a bright blue undercoat a bad idea? Here's the way I would do it. You paint it white, and then you either use Apothecary white contrast paint or pale gray wash from, I think, Vallejo, or something like that, to kind of get into all the crevices and to kind of get a little bit more towards a gray, right? You could just probably even try to make your own wash out of like a very light, cool gray color and then water it down a whole bunch, or maybe add some like even like contrast medium to it to kind of go down that road. And then once that's completely dry, you go back and you dry brush white over it again, and then now your fur is white specifically at the tips, but in all the crevices and stuff, it's like a light gray. That's the way I'd do it. That's just my quick and easy. Started with mecha models like Zoids and Gundam, and then moved on to miniatures for D&D. Oh, that's pretty cool. Used car salesman equals smarmy. Yeah, that's, yeah, yep, there you go. Condescendingly arrogant. Interesting. Bandai also does a line of robot kits called 30-minute Moosins? And they are quite inexpensive and don't require glue. Really wicked designs that can be combined with other kits in the line. Well, that's kind of cool. Uncle Adam, do you store your scatter terrain in boxes or just on shelves? Generally on shelves, which means I have to dust them from time to time. But yeah, generally on shelves. I mean, like really small stuff, I have a tendency to put in a box so I don't lose it. But bigger pieces and stuff like that, generally, yeah, I should probably figure out a way to store them in boxes, but I just kind of keep them on shelves. Greetings from Baton Rouge. How you doing? Smarmy, Eddie Haskell. There you go. See? Oh, everything scrolled again. Have you tried the new Army Painter speed paints? I have not as of yet. Let's see. OPR is making lizard men in space next year. Nice. Looking forward to that. What is a good tool to start sculpting 3D models with? I keep hearing about Blender because it's free. And there's lots and lots of tutorials for it out there. That's the only good one that I know of if you're looking for like a miniature person. If you're looking to just start out with like the bare minimum, just messing around trying to make 3D shapes and stuff like that, Tinkercad is pretty good. It's free and it runs in a browser, so you don't even have to download any software. You just do it in your browser, and then you can make like very simple, non-organic looking stuff for the most part, shapes and things like that. If you want to make like little electric junction boxes to stick on the outside of the pieces of terrain that you build to give them a little bit more kind of real detail and stuff like that, you could totally do that. Air conditioning units, stuff like that. Those types of things would be relatively simple to do in Tinkercad, but like a person or even a helmet or even a gun, probably not the hardest thing to do in Tinkercad, but like things that get more organic and weird are a little bit harder to do. So in those situations, you're probably going to go with some other sculpting stuff. That's all I know. I don't really sculpt, but I know a little bit about that. There's probably people in here otherwise that know more about that. So yeah. Let's see here. I use any paint with matte, medium, and flow aid to get contrast. Okay, that's cool. I should try that. Thinking of grabbing a Star Wars Legion set. Any experience with Star Wars Legion models? I have an 800-point painted force for Empire, for, like Galactic Civil War, Darth Vader, General Veers, Stormtroopers, stuff like that. They're not the greatest models in the starter box. They're okay, but they are very, very easy to build. If you decide to go with the newer starter box that's got clone troopers and droids in it, the droids specifically are far harder to build. They're actually on sprues like normal models, and they're very, very slender. And so I've heard from a lot of people that they're super fiddly to put together. So it depends on what you're looking for. There's mainly two main kind of timelines in Star Wars Legion. I mean, you can certainly have your droids fight against stormtroopers if you want to, but as far as the starter box is concerned, at least I think you can. I'm pretty sure you can. But starter box is pretty much either one starter box is like movies 4 through 6, and the other starter box is movies 1 through 3. So. Let's see here. For Space Lizardmen with cool guns, look at Die Hard miniatures. Interesting. If GW are thinking for pure profit and efficiency, it would strike me as inefficient to keep making 90s Eldar kits in plastic and resin that sell like crap. Well, I mean, it doesn't cost much. Now that once the molds get made, cranking out the plastic is pennies. Literally, pennies. It's the cost of the design and the mold that is the majority of the cost of the thing. So, like, the design and the mold take up 90% maybe of the cost of the actual item, and then the box and the packaging and the logistics take up maybe 9%, and then 1% is actually squirt plastic into mold opens up, plastic thing falls into bin. Like, that's so incredibly cheap. So when they've already paid for all that stuff up ahead of time, just keep cranking out stuff that people buy. At least, even if they don't buy that much, it does work out. Let's see here. Did you check out the Kill Wager Kickstarter? The game looks really fun. No, I haven't looked at any Kickstarters lately. I love both the lore and the aesthetic of AT-43 Therians, especially the doll faces on their mechs. Those doll faces were weird. They were like, but yeah, the Therians were neat looking though, yeah. Thanks for the MDF video link. Absolutely, not a problem. I got the new Army Painter airbrush line yesterday. I've tried the black so far, and it gave a nice finish. Yeah, like I said, I've messed with... well, to be fair, they were pre-production. They sent me some pre-production bottles to look at, so it's probably the same stuff, or very close to the same stuff. But yeah, I am looking forward to using because I've got the airbrush line stuff now too. I want to try that stuff out. Blender and Microsoft 3D Builder is what I use for my stuff. Everything on my Thingiverse was made with those two programs, remixed or from scratch. Nice. People talking about Blender. Look at Mesh Mixer. I used it for years, and it's free. That's pretty cool. Blender, it's free, and it is now being used by pro game devs as a sculpting tool, perfect for miniature sculpts. Nice. Let's see here. A fellow iWatch, Vidovkarts, that's a hard word to say, has videos on his YouTube showing how he sculpts up, but he uses ZBrush and Maya. Yeah. I backwards adopted a few of his techniques into Blender and 3D Builder, respectively. Nice. Blender has a high learning curve. True. That's very true. Rain, as in rain and blood, not to be confused with raining blood. Also true. First time catching you live. Just want to say hi. I love the content. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you, Reefer Phoenix. I appreciate that. Good way to gauge how popular a line is how many third-party groups make custom stuff for it. Lots of human and orc and Tau third-party bits, but not so many Eldar. You know, I've never thought about that, but that's a good point. Yeah, there's not... there's some, but there's a lot more orc. There's a lot more... especially orc. Orc and Space Marine, obviously, are the biggest ones when you look at companies like Cromlech and Spellcrow and Max Mini. Max Mini's back in business, I think, aren't they? I don't know. But yeah, those types of companies that are making bits for you to use very frequently aren't making bits for, like, Eldar. You don't see a lot of bits. You see some bits for... you don't see it. You see some bits for Necron, but I think it's Necron. Necron's not a very kit-bashy army. You know what I mean? Some armies are more kit-bashy than others. Orcs, obviously, very kit-bashy. Chaos can be very kit-bashy. Tau, not so much. Necrons, not so much. It's interesting, yeah. But yeah, so... Vidovic Arts. He's Aussie. Good guy. All right, there we go. Why do model companies discontinue kits when they have molds? I think eventually sometimes either the molds break and they don't want to pay to fix them or make new ones. Because they will even steal a mold over time. You know, after hundreds of thousands of uses, something will break. And then it's either a replacement job or a repair job. And so, you know, that happens. Sometimes it's because they want to make new stuff or they want to even get rid of a line. Like, you know, like look at... Tomb Kings. We were just talking about Tomb Kings with my friend at the game store yesterday. Tomb Kings, like they just stopped making Tomb Kings, but then eventually, a little while later, they made the Osiarch Bone Reapers. Which whenever, all of you people, when you've been putting OBR into, or OPR, which is one-page rules, I keep reading OBR, which is Osiarch Bone Reapers, and I keep getting confused, but that's just my problem, not yours. But yeah, so it's stuff like that sometimes too. Sometimes they want to make new stuff. Looking forward to a terrifying stream in 2 weeks. Indeed. Is it going to be actually Halloween? I'll have to wear a funny mask. Yeah, it is. Next show will be on Halloween. Spooky. Let's see here. Let's see. Wargames exclusive do some great counts as Eldar, although it's a fairly limited line. Yes, they probably also do a lot of pin-up Eldar too, because everything I've seen from Wargames exclusive, not everything, but most stuff I've seen from Wargames exclusive is like, hey, what about a pin-up Necron? And you're like, that's weird. Yeah. Is Cromlech today the same company from ages ago that made the sci-fi game whose name I can't recall from back in the 90s? I don't know. I have no idea. That's a good question, though, isn't it? If you want to go extra Egyptian with the army, then third party might be something, but Eldar and Tau have a distinct look, and getting something that sells and has mass appeal is tricky. That's also true, yeah. Puppets War. I was forgetting the name Puppets War. I think Puppets War has some Tau and Eldar bits as well, and recently expanded their own orc line. Love the new samurai orcs. Puppets War cranks out stuff just so much. Like, just, it's the great work, I think. I really like the stuff from Puppets War. I've bought a bunch of, like, heads and things like that for kit bashing, and have I bought any, like, arms or shoulder pads? Because I'm not really doing Space Marines anymore, I haven't bought any shoulder pads, but I bought lots of heads just for other stuff. You mix those heads in with... stuff from the Necromunda. Yeah, you can get some really cool looking stuff. I still have some old Cromlech minis from the 90s. Cool models, sci-fi troopers, and hard suits and cool guns. That sounds neat. Cool. Well, folks, it is about 11 o'clock in my neck of the woods. It will be in less than 30 seconds, I think. It'll be 11 o'clock. And I want to thank everyone for coming by today on this kind of weird episode where it was pretty much just to get caught back up and onto the regular schedule. So the next show here will not be next week because it's not gone to the every Sunday show. It's just this week it was. So next show will be Halloween, the 31st of October, for those of you who don't follow Halloween. I know some countries don't do that, but nonetheless, 31st of October, Sunday, will be the next show. Next weekend, I will be in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, home of Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons was originally invented and launched in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, back in the late 60s, early 70s. More early 70s. Anyway, so yeah, I'll be there at a convention. I'll be hanging out with moderator Matt, and we'll be seeing people. So that'll be cool. The convention is called Dragonfall. If you're in the area, you should think about coming by and checking it out. And yeah, it's for charity. Raises money for charity. Extra Life, Child's Play, stuff like that. So anyway, I'll see you folks in a couple of weeks. Otherwise, I'll be on Twitch tomorrow night at 7 p.m. If you want to check that stuff out, 7 p.m. Central tomorrow on Twitch. And I'll also be Friday, 10 a.m. Central, also on Twitch. I'll be leaving directly after Twitch to go to Lake Geneva for the convention. So we'll see you folks then. Thanks for coming by and hanging out and chatting. And have a good rest of your day. And